Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm very, very happy today to bring you a wonderful man who is French Canadian living in Portugal right now. His name is Eric Bourg. I can't say it. Bourgault.
Eric Bourgault.
Now that I've had to think about how to pronounce your last name, I screwed it up. I apologize. You are the founder of DigiPause, and this is certainly being National Wellness Month, the month of August. I think there are so many wonderful facets of wellness, and I definitely think taking a pause from digital is so important. So I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Tell everybody who you are and what your mission is.
Yes, well, first and foremost, thank you, Sharon, for your great work and great commitment to the world of wellness. This is awesome.
Thank you.
And for me, Sharon, I would say it this way. We talk a lot about wellness, but how can we embody the notion of wellness in the digital age? And that's what DigiPause is all about.
Great. So how did it come to fruition for you? What gave you the pull to get this started?
I would say a tech breakdown. I just didn't take it anymore. It was back in 2008, even though there was no smartphones out, there was no social media yet, and I was still completely addicted to my screen. And I say screens because, as you know, back in the days, we had access to a television, then access to a computer. So there were different ways to distract ourselves. For me, it was a real issue. It had such an impact in my life, in my health, especially my mental health, that I had to take some actions. Back in the days, there were no doctors and there was no diagnosis available to say, you're addicted to the web, this is what you should do instead. Okay, so I left. I took off and I got the classical line about the folks who left everything behind, went on a no man's land, traveled around the world, find a moment of, aha, here I am today.
Love it. So how I'm so impressed by this notion of taking that pause. And I have been, I'm sure, on a much smaller scale than how you have incorporated it in your life. I found myself at the beginning of 2020, pre-pandemic, pre-racial unjust, pre-everything that's gone on in the world today. I found myself really wanting to shift how I conduct my daily life. And I used to, when I woke up in the morning, the first thing I did was turn my phone on and start looking at all my social media streams. Now I make a conscious effort that it's almost the last thing that I do after I sit down and start working. So that means I get up, I exercise, I meditate, I make my bulletproof coffee, I go out in nature, I walk my dog, and then I have to land in the digital land. So tell me about, how you see this effect of the digital era that we're in, infiltrating into our mental health.
Well, let's go back 20 years ago, say, because we're from the same generation. 20 years ago, it was possible to make some choices and adjust according to your priorities and needs. You were able to enjoy activities that were not necessarily online. Nowadays, when you think about something, instantly it's online. So it was easier to believe about programs that integrate this notion of balance, okay? We're now in 2020, especially now, it's almost impossible to step out of the virtual box. We're consumed by it night and days. I mean, if you go to school, if you work, if you want to keep your work, if you want to keep your friends, if you want to entertain yourself and it's all online. So even if I say to people, well, it's just a question of balance, how can I apply that in my daily life? That's the real question to ask. And especially, how can you make some compromise by saying, okay, I'm going to put aside my technology and I'm going to go out and just go for a walk with my dog, just me and my dog, no device involved. or I'm going to go for a bike ride. As you see, I love cycling just like you.
Yep.
But how can you do that in a way where you don't necessarily have to cut loose, say, like this is what I'm trying to say to people all the time, is like, you don't have to remove yourself from this technology. You just have to learn how to engage with it in a healthier way. And it's something that we never learned. So now we're like caught up with a new reality that it's in our face, right? In 2020, it's no longer a question of I'll think about it and maybe I'll make some changes. It's either you make some changes or you're going to pay the consequences of the choices that you never made in reference to technology.
So in thinking about the audience and how we can help, because as you're talking, I am thinking explicitly about my 16-year-old stepson, who already I know that there's difficulty in focusing, especially when this is, in his hand and I'm asking him to do something or trying to have a conversation. I can tell in his response to me, that he's absolutely not listening, which, goes hand in hand with being 16 anyway. But so what do you suggest? Like, what are some action steps that people can take? Because I want to help the community in starting them to think about, how it is so important that we pause. What are some of the things that you would recommend people do?
Every time people ask the same questions, and every time people ask me to fix their kids, and it's true story, by the way, because everywhere I go, I say, oh, your work is so important. I wish my kids could do it. Here's what I'm going to say today for this show. I think what's most important is to use an ounce of common sense. I say common sense because, again, we're forced to be online more than we want to, more than we think we are. So how can we install this notion of balance when you look at others and realize that they're online all the time? Why would I take some time off anyway? So we try to adjust with this new reality. So for parents at home and the one who listen to us right now, I would say this: if you do it and act as a role model, chances are that the people around you will do the same. It's like the sponge effect. And this way, not just that you will understand it, but you will be able to explain it better on the benefit, the payoff that you get from it. In other words, if someone say, I wish my kids would spend less time online, then you first want to review your own use of it. Understand that, okay, maybe there's time that I could go off and maybe do something else, other activities of some sorts. And then from my experience on how I feel now, then I can pass it on to people around me. If it's not your kids, it can be your clients, it can be whoever, right? Let me just share with you a story. I think it will reach people when I say that. Gandhi, the Indian figure. A woman came one day to see Gandhi with her daughter, asking Gandhi to tell her daughter that eating sugar is not good for her. Gandhi said, come back and see me in 2 weeks. So the woman came back with her daughter again and asked the same question. And Gandhi this time said, he looked at the little daughter and said, eating sugar is not good for you. So the woman was all puzzled. Why is it that you never said that in the first place 2 weeks before? 2 weeks ago, I was still eating candy, sugar. So for me, it's the same. How are we supposed to explain something that can be of a great benefit for someone if we don't put it in practice in our own life? So that's why my work from DigiPause is just to propose what I have to put in practice in my own life. It's not like a one-time, it's not a one suit fits all to start with. And even if you know it, it won't make much of a difference at the end. Because it's all based on the intention and not the perfection. There's moments where you're going to slip back into your old habits, but the more that you learn better ways, the less you will be attracted and seduced by this kind of mixed bag of dopamine, because it's the fix, right? When we talk about the online world, it's the fix. Talk to any doctors, they will tell you how much our brain how savvy we are for this constant fix, this dopamine, this rush of dopamine. So easier said than done, but whether it's for your kids at home or whoever struggle with this kind of addiction, is to learn how to make the shift between a hardcore addiction that really harm our body, mind, body, and shift over to something that is softer. So I made my choice. Look, cycling. I'm not. I'm not training to do the Tour de France. I just cycle because it's good for me. I can sweat, can let go of my crazy thinking, the monkey mind, as I often say. Take some time off from my phone because I don't bring any phone with me. It will be a nonsense. And the same apply for anything else, whether it's to laugh, as I teach laughter yoga, gardening. Anytime that you do some activities like that, that can help you to just lower your mental activities, it will increase your immune system and will allow you to take some time off from your phone or any devices in this case.
I really love what you just shared. And the whole time you were speaking, I was thinking about that saying, you know, be the change that you want to see in the world. And you talking about being that example, because really the children, anybody, they're just watching how we're reacting ourselves. That was one of the reasons I made a more conscious effort this year in particular to make sure that this is not the thing that is in my face all of the time. So I can be that example. And talking about biking, which I love, by the way, and I love that you wore that t-shirt today. I had COVID and I lost my sense of smell. And I have a very regimented, you know, I get up, I do my exercise, I meditate, and I usually only bike on the weekends. Well, because I've had to stay quarantined for so long, I made a decision just over the last few days to just go on my bicycle during the week and feel the nature. And if I want to get that sense of smell back, I bet the first time I'm going to get it is when I ride my bike by some flowers or, you know, because it really is, it's so invigorating. And I too, I am not training for Tour de France or Tour de anything. I ride my bike for my mental health. I always have, and I always will. It is the greatest sense of pleasure for my brain to focus on what is really important. So I thank you for bringing that up. I want to talk to you about how this DigiPause that you've created enhances this wellness tourism sector. Can you speak on that?
Yes, the wellness tourism sector, as you know, need to renew itself. There's been many changes over the last, not just few months, but few years. And now I think that the tourism sector is in need for a facelift. They're in need to review the services they have to offer, the kind of clients that are coming to them, and furthermore, the way they can promote wellness in the first place, because otherwise it's just a buzzword. It's one thing to have a nice spa, a treatment facility, but you need to find ways to incorporate programs or services that match with it. And that is based on clients' needs and requests. There's many studies and surveys that exist and shows the evidence that people need that. They need places where they can unplug, completely unplug from unplug from the clock, unplug from their phone, from any form of distractions. However, when you look at the amount of places that are available to make it happen, it's very limited. Because often they say it in their marketing, they say, we have a nice digital detox haven. And it's not the case. So for my last few years of research on the ground, because I've been traveling in 14, 15 countries doing just that, you know, what I did was to, I just want to share that. What I did was to switch from one addiction, an addiction to another. My addiction was internet addiction. My other addiction became digital detox. So that's why for many years when I was riding my bicycle around the world, collecting some information, put it to the test to then use it and create what now is DigiPause. It's only because it was an obsession, but it was a healthy obsession. And during my years of traveling and meeting owners of resorts what I found is like they had all the nice title, digital detox even, but none of them were able to create a frame around it. So I would always ask them the question at the end. I say, okay, you promote this notion of digital detox, but do you have Wi-Fi in rooms? And he will always answer, oh yeah. So I was like, it's kind of pointless, right? It's like you're trying to propose something, but you're not really willing to go the distance with your clients. And
Yeah.
that's why I believe that there's a necessity for people who already experience internet addiction, who already have the language and the ability to create programs designed to help people who wants to improve their life, their well-being, to be part of that. And that is my contribution.
I love it. I've always said that it was been, so I'm sober 25 years, 26 years in just a few days. So I
Congratulations.
understand addiction.
Yeah, you do.
Thank you. And I've been very conscious of the things throughout my sobriety I have become addicted to. So I have that consciousness. I mean, there was a time, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but this is not ridiculous to an addict. I was addicted to Tic Tacs, right? Just white little Tic Tacs. I'm talking, I would have 6 boxes of Tic Tacs a day. And I felt every time I got stressed, I would eat the Tic Tacs, because I no longer have a form of release. No drugs, no alcohol, no antidepressants, no overeating. So I would justify, even if it was about digital media, I would justify that, look, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, but anything that is taking us out of self and becomes an inhibitor to having a well space in our mind is definitely something that needs to be looked at. So I want to ask you, and I don't know if you have the answer, but I want to pose this because for me, I was very blessed in the sense I had this community, which I believe is a part of what you're talking about creating or created. I had 12-step recovery, and I have been a part of it for 26 years now. And it was the community of people around me that were able to share these common addictions and these common struggles. No doctor, no therapist, no medication, no anything was able to help me like the people that I identified with.
Yes. You
So
have a sense of belonging with the group.
yes.
Which is really important.
It's similar. I mean, is there, because I've always felt bad that people don't have what I have. Many people struggle today with many issues that are not alcohol and drug addiction, and they could get help through these programs. So is that part of how you, even yourself, were able to get away from it? I mean, having other people that identified?
I'll say this to you, and I might surprise some of you as well. When I left in 2008, I also had issues with other addictions, chemical substance abuse in this case. And I had access to some groups, so I was able to get the support needed, just like you described it right now. But when you travel as I did, you don't always have access to your groups. You step out of your comfort zone. You have to rearrange your life and priorities. What I found when I was traveling, living with locals, learning because I was using this kind of volunteer programs to work on farms. So I had a chance to really discover new cultures. I had a chance to really get my hands dirty, understand where my food is coming from, sit at a table with a bunch of fellows, talk different languages, having a chance to share some good laughter. So altogether, it became the canvas from what DigiPause is today. And at first I remember I was really concerned about that. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna have a chance to talk to my therapist or see my bunch of friends or talk to my sponsor. How am I gonna do that? And overall, what I found was the ability to trust myself, to build a new me. And what is probably the most helpful, what was part of this healing journey, was to let go of the importance that I had about Eric. So I went from this notion of selfie to selfless. So when I created DigiPause, it was based on the systemic method that is the reconnect to disconnect. That is what I consider to be the three pillars of life and longevity. And the first one is health and wellness, which means that move it or lose it. Remember that one?
Yes,
Right?
I do.
Don't just talk about it. Don't bring it at the conceptual level. Do something practical. You know, I ride my bike. I could be hiking, but just the fact that you're physical, you're out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, second is self-expression. If you keep it for yourself, it will destroy you. You know that part. We both know when we talk about chemical substance abuse, how harmful it can be if you don't know how to express and communicate your feelings. So that's the second part. And the third one is community leadership. How can it be of service? You see, that changed everything. And it was just filling me up with so much joy, so much contentment, that I had no interest to go back to my addiction, whether the chemical one or non-chemical one. And I had a chance to discover a new world. So to me, that's what I have to share to people. It's like, okay, don't do what I've done. It's crazy. You know, you don't want to travel around the world for years as I did, spend that much money. I live in, I don't know, 300-400 communities, believe it or not. It was just crazy. I was from one community to another, and I was only there because I was hungry for meaning. You know, I was born in Canada and born in a suburban area surrounded with McDonald's and Walmart. That doesn't nourish you. It deprivates you from your sense, right? Because I always say that addiction is meant to serve a purpose. And in this case, it is a coping mechanism to function in a world that is dysfunctional. So when you go in countries like I am here in Portugal, it feeds you up. You have no idea. I mean, your plate is full. You know, I go on a bike ride and I just go crazy. I'm like, how can it be more beautiful than that? Because I have no agenda. I just go. And while I go, I relax and release all the stress. See? So for me, that's what I have to offer, because I went back to Canada after my years of traveling, got right into a depression, Sharon. Because I was like, what's wrong here? Nobody look at each other. Nobody talk to each other. You know, nowadays we talk about social distancing. And just a few months before the lockdown, I was talking about social isolation. And I was supposed to do a national tour across Canada that I had to cancel because there were no consideration and interest from people. I was trying to create communities and use laughter as a way to generate the possibility of healthy communities across Canada. So, you know, I think that what we need to do is first and foremost understand the environment in which we live in and really take a look at it and say, is it really filling me up, or it's taking from me? I know right now there's a strong interest from people who live in big cities to move outside of big cities. But here's the thing, if you move outside of the big cities with all of your unhealthy habits, you're just going to reproduce the same thing again. You know?
No matter where you go, there you are.
Boom, voila, it's exactly where I was going with you. It doesn't matter the distance you're going to cover. It doesn't matter the amount of people you will meet. It doesn't matter the amount of books you're going to read. If you don't put it in practice, if you don't process it, it's just going to be a pile up of knowledges, and you're still going to be unhappy, unhealthy, and live a life of misery.
Oh, it's so true. And I will, it's so true. You know, I moved here to Tampa Bay, Florida from New York 16 years ago. And I came here by myself. So I didn't have a job. I just knew that I needed to be surrounded by the sun and the water, because it was very difficult, you know, to go from a deep, dark depression and then to get sober and to start feeling good. And now I have a big job, and I was in corporate. I was director of operations. I had all these doctors around me, and, you know, it was so good. But I just wanted to be around nature and to be in beauty and to understand that it didn't matter where I went, there I was always going to be. and how could I find my own happiness within myself, which is, I believe, what you're saying, you know. And I
Yeah.
yeah, I spent 2 years by myself, just being with self, you know. And
Wow.
it's a wonderful journey. And I disagree. I think you should tell people to do what you did and travel around the world. I think that there's so much to see, and
Yes.
we get so fixated on, this is where I live, this is where I grew up, this is what I should do. But there's so much wonderful people. Like, what a blessing and a gift that you get to meet, who, you know, I would say at the time might be strangers that become friends just because you start talking and breaking bread and farming with them, and learning about what you're putting in your body. I mean, that to me, that is real wellness.
Well, what I found, since, as you said, we're in August, which is the month of wellness, I'd like to touch on it because it's something that kind of bugged me, to be honest with you. We often refer wellness to what goes into our belly, right? It's all about nutrition. And I'm like, okay, I agree with that. It's a good percentage of wellness. But what about here? You know, what about what you put in here? So if your mind is fully messed up because you got too much information going on there and you don't know how to process it, and you don't really pick things that are meant to be healthy for you, you know, in terms of what you look at in terms of content, I'm sorry to say you can have a very healthy guts, but if it's messy here, there's a disconnection.
Oh, you're
And
so right. You're so
yeah,
speaking my language, Eric.
yeah, well, because, I mean, I sit every time, I sit everywhere. I was living on the West Coast for 8 years. Beautiful place, beautiful people. But what came up to me more than once was this tendency to disconnect the body in two. So there were this real concern about what's going on out there, how people look, because you're in Miami is the same thing. So it stopped right here. So everything looked very nice, like nice suntan, nice size, nice everything. But here, it doesn't work. Like there is no critical thinking involved. There were no ways to see how can I be of service for others. It was about me. Feed me up with your likes. Feed me up with how much you appreciate what I do and how great I can be. This is a road to destruction. If people are really committed to wellness, we're going to really think about it differently from a more global or holistic view. So I think that the biggest challenge we're going to face over the next years to come is really that part. It's the digital wellness, what goes into the box. And the only way to make sure that what goes into the box is healthy is to step out of the virtual one. And it's not something you're going to hear from doctors, because often doctors limit themselves to what's broken. They don't really want to take you on a road or say on a journey to prevent things to happen. It's broken, now let's fix it. And I think that we need to have this conversation, not just limited to different groups, but in general, and dare to provoke that. Because when I left India in February, just a few weeks before the lockdown, I was talking to a bunch of doctors. That was really cool. And I was saying to them, I said, you know everything about the body. You know, they learn from books, which is awesome. So I said, but this time I'm going to ask you to open your mind. Just open your mind. Just like, let's try to explore and question things here. Let's not take it for granted. Let's see if it makes sense for you or not. Because I think that the moment we use common sense, then we connect with each other. Because it's a universal language, Sharon. You know, it's not just limited to a certain culture, a certain group or ethnicity, as we're talking about these days. It's worldwide. It's us as human beings.
You know, we say this term in my 12-step recovery group, that we are selfish, self-centered, and self-seeking as humans. And what we learn is how to shift that and to not have the focus entirely on us. And I love you bringing up how service, if you really want to know how to feel good, it's not going to be the Tic Tacs or my cell phone or the drugs or the alcohol.
Or
It's
the
really,
TikTok.
Right. For the
Is it
TikTok.
TikTok?
Right.
Right?
Exactly. It's really to just help your fellow human being and to be of service to somebody else. Um, and that doesn't always happen when we're constantly inside of that digital box. So I appreciate your words so much, and I certainly am in full agreement. I know that, because I work with doctors for a living, I have a great respect for the medical community. But the world that we live in today treats chronic disease, and even with the insurance companies, they don't pay for prevention, they pay for chronic illness. And then these doctors unfortunately get sucked into that world. Not the ones that I typically work with. I usually work with the ones who have broken out of corporate
Yeah.
and are working within the integrative wellness circle. But, I think that we have a real opportunity now because everybody really had to take a pause. Well, we hope they did, right? And take a real look inside of themselves to see how they're going to redesign their life.
To redesign their life. And that's what my work is all about. And this is why I say, yes, I can help you out, but in the first place, you got to be willing to help yourself too. Because it's one thing to say, I'm a coach and I'm going to fix you. But what is it if you're not committed to this work? So that's why I prefer to take people where they are, bring them where they want to go, and use a nice vehicle to take them there. So cycling is one of them. Laughter is another. Gardening is also included. This is where it's tricky because, I don't live in a land of like a Lego land, For some people, it's going to work. For others, it won't. It's not a one suit fits all, as I said before. So it's like, okay, where are you coming from exactly? What is it that you're looking for? And I feel like people sometimes don't know that. They don't know about themselves. And if they do something, they do it for others. When you start to really know who you are and you're willing to tap into your own intrinsic motivations, you're going to make the changes. But if you do it just to prove something, or if you do it because you want to be recognized, it won't work.
Amen.
And in the world of instant gratification, yeah. So that's why it's like, okay, but what are you willing to give in return, right?
Absolutely. There is no better way to explain how a coach of any kind really works. It's really to help you come to that conclusion yourself, because there's so much work that needs to be done. Even when I talk to doctors, I know what they think I might be doing with them, and then what ultimately I do is I'm really trying to figure out what's going on with you and what has happened to you to put you in a place of unhappiness like this, or a place where you can't build your business, or a place where you're angry at your staff. It's never the staff. It's always all the reasons behind it, right?
Yes.
So
it has to be a human experience. And I love, if I look back at some of the people that I met, including Dr. Patch Adams, I love his approach. I'm sure you spoke to him before.
no,
Patch?
I haven't. No, but I know him.
You definitely want to do that. Patch is brilliant because he never tried to impose his knowledges on you, and he's always willing to support people. He was the one who said, how can we know about our patients if we only spend 15 minutes with them? That's ridiculous. They made a movie with Robin Williams called Dr. Clown, that you probably know of.
Yeah, I saw
And
that. Yeah.
it's just great. For what he created so far and what people are willing to take from Patch, it's just to say, okay, how can we bring the real medicine to the people? And the medicine is not things you find in a small, small bottle. It is what you see around you. I often use the term vitamin N that stands for vitamin nature, a term that was coined by it's not a doctor, Richard Louv, who's the founder of the Children in Nature Network movement that I'm part of. And I use that just to say to people, don't go that far. It's right next to you. Find a place where you can breathe. And I'm not talking inside, just nearby. and you're going to get your fix. You're going to get your daily dose of vitamin nature, right? And that itself will just create this kind of compensation.
Yeah, and you know, you are right though. If and I'm sure that you agree that it really it's only going to work when you're ready.
It has to be. That's why this crisis will be of a benefit for some people and will be a disaster for others. And
Yes.
by the way, until now, we were using the term internet addiction. And for the sake of my new book, and I had to review my book because it was supposed to be out in April and it won't be. There's so much more to add now with what's going on. I was obviously referring to problematic internet use or internet addiction, but now the fact that we're so consumed and obligated to be online, I use the term web enslavement. Because it's like, hello, this is the only way to really understand it in the first place. We're hooked because we have to be hooked.
Yeah.
The only way we can get out of it is if we start to question things outside of the virtual box. And the enemy of most people, past the denial, negation, rationalization, which is big, now the worst enemy for people is the DIY, do it yourself. If I say to you, go online and I'll give you a set of exercises that you can do on your own, thanks to the, I don't know how many, I think we're up to 250,000, maybe more wellness apps on the market. It won't work. You need the assistance of a human being. It doesn't matter how many apps you have on your phone that are supposed to promote well-being. If you don't have access to your human presence, it doesn't work. And I hope while we have this conversation, and because it's the month of wellness, that the people that are creating wellness apps can figure ways to create a bridge between folks like us, people that are in the real world, people that have access to a real environment to support their work, right? To make a connection. And this is what I'm bringing here in Portugal, by the way. That's the reason of my presence, because I know that right now there's a strong push for the industry to move further on with all of the wellness apps, which is a necessity as we speak. But how can we keep the human nature into it? That's a big piece of it.
I couldn't agree more. You know, and I think that because of experience, right? I mean, I'll speak for myself as somebody who was very depressed, which equated to so much self-isolation. Like I could not leave my house. I was so petrified because of the depression that had taken over my mind that now, you know, I can't spend that much time alone, or I can't spend that much time in the dark. I have to have a lot of light around me. I can't watch a lot of television. It's all triggers for me. And you have to be very, very proactive once you have accepted, right? There's so much that you can do to get well.
You need to take ownership. You need to take ownership, Sharon. That's I believe part of our message here is that the moment you say, okay, nobody else can do it except me, you start the change within yourself, and then you look around to see how you can maintain that. It's like you don't water a plant just once in a while. You have to do it every day, right? It's like God, the same. If I don't take care of my little garden, who's going to do that? Nobody else. So I think it's a question of being responsible. And that's why in my coaching style, I always use this notion of accountability with my clients to make sure they are in integrity with the choices they want to make. So it's not about me, it's about them. But it's not just to say, here's a pile of things you can do to improve your life, and that's it. No, you want to make sure people are constant. And they understand that nobody else can look after them at the end. Yeah. You got to be more, well, I'm going to say that, be less dependent on, but be working with. So that's the difference, because codependency can also be a bit of a struggle and a very dysfunctional relationship you may have with people. Because in the world of coaching now, as you know, there's more and more coaches, by the way. It's incredible the amount of coaches. It seems like they're just like ants. They just multiply themselves everywhere. Like, wow, okay. Coach in the kitchen, coach, and they're everywhere. But the point is, if there's no substance, constancy, both sides, the client and the coach, where are we going?
Yeah.
You know, because it's just like pure magic, but it lasts for a very short amount of time.
Well, I really, really loved your message. I certainly took a lot for myself, selfishly. So a lot of times I know it's a good interview when I get lost in the conversation and I forget we're recording. So I want to thank you for bringing this to the world. We will have all your information of how to contact you and how to get involved with DigiPause. I hope everybody takes really take it in about how important this wellness is that's going on in between our ears is. Everything else will fall in line after, right?
And on that note, Sean, I just want to mention that the website, as you know, is going through, the website is under construction. It's a full rebranding. I'm trying to really adjust my services based on this new reality. I'm working on a few books, most of which will be out, I hope, by the end of this year. I'm not putting any stress on it, but it will be my way. It will be an extension of what I've done so far, using a different channel of communication, because I love to write poetry and I love to do graphics and drawing. And I think that people are due for something that they can really take home for a while and not just get an instant fix. Because, you know, I was writing a book and I was borrowing some comments and some ideas from others, and I realized that it's very impersonal. And when I write poetry and when I do drawing, to me, it's like it is me to you. It's like a direct connection. So I'll tell you more about that in the next few weeks or few months.
Yes, good. Well, I'm so happy you, like myself, I think a lot of us are reinventing ourselves, because this has been a great time of introspection. And what we want to really give out to the world is something that we should be thinking long and hard about. So thank you again for joining us today, Eric. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Remember, it's one day at a time.
Day at a time. That is right. All right. Thanks, Eric, so much. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you.
So don't forget, if you mention that you have seen the show or listened to the podcast, Thai Technology, 3 months for free.